Hi, I'm Dr. Rodney Davis. I'm an associate professor at Troy University in Dothan, Alabama. I really am pleased to be a part of this conference, the second International Forum in Education, the Sciences, and Social Praxis, sponsored by Asian Intellect. Now, I'm appearing electronically, and that's kind of an unusual way to do it, but in keeping with the theme of this conference, the new dawn in educational research, this is an example of that new dawn. Now, I'm going to make some formal remarks here in just a minute, but I wanted to take a moment and just thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of this event. I realize that there are many things that you have to do and many places you need to be, but you took time to come and present your research so we can all benefit from it. So I want you to know that I am personally grateful to you for doing that, and look forward to sharing with you electronically by email and then at some future event at a conference personally. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the session that I have, and that's dealing with the conference theme. Over the years, I've had several opportunities to deliver the keynote address at research conferences. It has been as much a study of what not to do as it has been what to do. What I've learned I acquired not from personal experience, but by watching others deliver them. I have seen those who understood the purpose of the address and fulfilled it to the letter. Then there have been those public speakers who clearly did not know what they were doing, and the audience suffered. One of the worst keynote addresses I had ever witnessed was a time when the speaker spent his entire allotted time and then some providing an overview of the theoretical underpinnings of the wrong theme. He mistakenly misread the theme provided when he was asked to speak and spoke about a topic completely unrelated to the conference. It was painful to watch this man speak. Here are 3 rules that I follow, and by doing so, I think will make our brief time together more profitable. First, my role is to create an environment that engages you in the marketplace of ideas. I'm not the focus of the conference, I understand that, but just one of the people that gets to ring the bell calling you to attention. Second, my task is to be brief but informative. We must always realize that there are other speakers who will take the stage, and they deserve their allotted time. Lastly, it's my responsibility to elaborate on the theme. I have the enviable task of addressing the relevance of this theme and how you, the audience, are impacted or defined by it. With the knowledge that the first 2 rules will be followed religiously, I propose to skip directly to the third one and discuss the conference theme. The conference organizers have provided us with a curious, if not cryptic, theme. I call your attention to the words "new age of research." At first glance, this phrase brings the image of a boundary to mind, not a barrier as substantial as a stone wall, more of a nebulous or ill-defined separation between what was and what is. Here's the justification for my use of the words cryptic and curious. As I've surveyed the landscape of educational research, little has changed in how we conduct research. The methods we employ, whether quantitative or qualitative, remain virtually unchanged for the better part of the last century. Strategies or statistical analyses may have gained greater acceptance over the years in the research community, and therefore become more common. Yet this fact should not be taken as proof we are entering a new age of research. I don't think we are. I know that may put me at odds with the conference organizers because of the title or theme of this session, but listen to what I have to say and I think I'll make my point. If anything has changed in the Philippines when it comes to research, I think there is now a new emphasis on conducting research, even at the K-12 level. Educators are being strongly encouraged to examine their practice by conducting action research. In higher education, faculty effectiveness is being determined by research productivity, and research productivity does not necessarily include the quantity of publications, but now a greater attention to the quality of the product and the reputation of the journal where it's published. The next word in the theme, dawning, is very descriptive. Sunrise or dawn is a process. It begins to be light long before we ever see the sun peek over the horizon. Considering the theme, the word dawning conveys the meaning that something is coming that is not yet here. We might call it a prolepsis. That's a word that says that there's something on the horizon that has not made its full appearance. As the world turns, the sun appears to rise in the sky and the darkness gives way to light of a new day. So it is with educational research. Different methodologies take time to gain acceptance in academia. I see three changes that are on the horizon, so to speak. The first change that I see gaining acceptance soon, if it's not already here, is publishing research in electronic journals. It was a little more than 20 years ago that few professors would ever consider publishing their research in an electronic journal. Only a handful of the major journals even that had print as well as online journals. They weren't very common. Today, there are nearly 100,000 academic journals, and 95% of them have print as well as electronic versions. And according to some reports, half of that number of journals are published now only online or strictly online. They no longer have print publications. Even though there are still researchers who look down on the electronic journal and institutions who will not accept their inclusion in a promotion and tenure application, times are changing. I don't have the time to make the arguments in favor of them, but I am confident that in time they will become generally accepted as valid outlets for high quality research. Even at my own institution, there was a level of administration that questioned the validity of these online journals, even those that had print versions but also had online versions, or journals that were tied to conferences. And I understand the Asian Intellect Organization, which sponsors this conference, has journals. And in some quarters of the United States, they look down on what they call conference journals. But I see them as valid outlets for getting the ideas that we need to be talking about out into the marketplace. So I think this is one of the changes that has been long overdue that we're going to see burst upon the scene in this new age of research. Second, I believe the improvements in voice over internet technology is going to increase the access that researchers have to present their research in forums all over the world. I'm convinced that in the years to come, a lack of financial resources or geographical boundaries and political opposition will no longer prevent competent researchers from interacting with their colleagues. Great strides in the development of this technology have made it possible for me to be addressing you without having to be physically present. Already a few of the international conferences with which I'm familiar have options for researchers to make their presentations in real time via video conferencing websites. There is no substitute for traveling to an international conference, and I'm in favor of that. And being able to interact with the participants is powerful. And being able to do that in that international forum is exactly what we should be doing. But with the costs of travel and immigration issues and concerns and shrinking budgets in higher education, virtual presentations might be a viable way for scholars to share their findings in their research. And I have been doing these video presentations when I can't be in the country. Now, I'm typically in the Philippines between a month and 3 months every year. But when a lot of the conferences are taking place, it's when I'm here in the United States. So this is the next best way for me to be able to interact with you, at least try to interact with you. And I think this is going to become more common as the days draw on. The third change that's looming on the horizon relates to how academics, scholars, will collaborate in the future. Current collaboration revolves around professors at the same university, or at least in the same country, relating to each other, working with each other on their research. But with the aid of technology, it's going to become more commonplace for professors in various parts of the world to routinely work together with colleagues in other parts of the world. I still remember the time when President Nixon spoke to the first astronauts on the moon. It was a technological wonder. It had never been done before that day. Now we have the capability to call our friends all over the world and think nothing of it. Gone are the days of the international operators who connected those calls and you paid $50 for a 2-minute call. With today's technology, staying connected is easier than ever. People will still need to connect personally, but the technology is going to make it possible and financially feasible. The collaborations are going to increase naturally because of the technology, but the richness of the research will also increase as researchers from diverse backgrounds and perspectives work together to solve complex problems that cross borders. And I think that's going to be a great change for researchers because they're going to have a greater access to people who share similar ideas and have similar research problems that they want to work on from different perspectives. And dealing with those problems maybe in first world nations or developed nations, and also looking at them in developing nations. So I think this is going to be a great change for educational research. In the time that remains, I would like to focus my final remarks on the things that I would like to see remain the same as the new age of research unfolds. Now, it might seem impossible to balance the changes in research with the hope that certain aspects remain the same. I mean, let's face it, life is about change, and it would be foolish for an individual to think that he could stop things from changing. Some might call it wishful thinking then, but for me there are certain practices in research that I do not want to see change as we enter a new year. My first hope for the new age and new year is that scholars would conduct research that they are passionate about instead of conducting research for the sake of conducting research, or just doing research because they're told by their administration to do it. This includes those that are conducting research to obtain tenure or seeking promotion. By using the word passionate, I mean more than a casual interest. To have passion for something means that it's your central focus. You never get bored or tired of reading about the topic or learning more about it. A passionate researcher is immersed in his research, not to the point of losing his or her objectivity or perspective, but that the research is a great part of what makes up his professional persona. And I think we can make those connections to our personal life. Just think about your significant other, your wife, your husband, your boyfriend or girlfriend. If you're passionate about them, certainly what I've just said would also be true about them. You want to know more about that person and know them in a greater and deeper way. A passionate researcher then is a person who could talk for hours about his or her focus of research and never exhaust the topic. When finished, this person wonders where the time went. A truly passionate person can explain the intricacies of his research so that a novice could understand it, all the while making the novice as excited as he is about the research. Have you ever met someone like this in your travels? I have had the pleasure of listening to just such a person, and it was pure joy. We wondered where the time went when he finished, and felt like, wow, we don't even need to eat. I would rather listen to this person talk than eat a good meal. Unfortunately, though, I've had the misfortune of listening to researchers who were not passionate about their research. They were conducting research because it was what professors do. Oh, they were interested in their work. There's no doubt about that. But that is all the research was to them, work. It was what they did to maintain their position at the university. Once the research was completed, they were on to the next project. Their main concerns seemed to be more about how this research would support their promotion portfolio than how this research would add to our knowledge and impact the target population. How do you become passionate about your research? There are several ingredients that you must have in order to become passionate. First, conduct research that is interesting to you. The more you are involved in the research, the greater your passion for it will be. Second, do not succumb to the pressures of others to complete your research on their timetable. Good research takes time to complete. If you rush it, you produce bad research. I'm not so naive that I don't realize that you must produce your findings in a reasonable amount of time. Especially if you're going up for tenure, there are strict timelines of you've got to have your research published within 5 years or else you lose your position. But my hope here is that you will take the time you need to do a thorough job of investigating your research question before you rush to release your findings or your conclusion. Third, allow yourself to be curious. It might be a strange statement to make to a room filled with researchers, but being curious gives you permission to explore the nuances of your topic. We call these rabbit trails here in the United States. And a rabbit is a little small mammal that it hops one direction and then it hops another direction and it kind of bounces around on the ground looking for food and staying away from prey. So a rabbit trail in research are those journeys you take that are not directly related to your central research. They don't fulfill that main research question. They're tangential to it, but they might lead you to an important discovery or a different perspective on what you're studying. So if you turn off your curiosity, who knows what you might miss? And as the cliche tells us, it is the road less traveled oftentimes that brings us the most exciting journey. My second hope for you is that you would continue to see yourselves as the scholars you are. Or if you don't consider yourself a scholar, that you would begin to do so. Have you noticed that we don't use the word very often when we describe what it is we do? We sometimes talk about scholarship, but in our minds we don't necessarily register that scholarship is performed by scholars. When we ask our colleagues in higher education, they will very quickly tell you that they're Dr. So-and-so, or that they are an associate professor, or a full professor, or a college professor. Seldom do they introduce themselves as a researcher. Yet conducting research is what we do, but it's not who we are. To refer to yourself as a scholar might be presumptuous. I understand that, and I'm willing to admit that. Some people might think, wow, you're putting on an air, a false attitude, making yourself more important than you really are. But when you look at the definition of a scholar, the idea of a monk in a monastery somewhere studying Latin or recopying ancient manuscripts might come to mind. But the definition of a scholar, you'll see, is a person who has profound knowledge and understanding of a particular subject. Not all subjects, but a very particular one. A researcher, then, by definition, is someone who discovers and verifies information. Do you notice the difference between those two definitions? A researcher does not necessarily have profound or deep understanding of a topic. He's the one who might make a discovery, and he might verify information, verify that a particular treatment has the desired effect on the control group or on the treatment group, yet they don't have that profound knowledge. So it might just be a matter of semantics. I'm willing to admit that. But I like the sound of scholar more than I like the sound of just being a researcher. it, in my own mind, causes me to sit up a little bit straighter. Not saying I'm a know-it-all. I'm not saying I know everything there is to know about my chosen topic or field. But what I am saying is, as a scholar, I am continuing to investigate this one topic. I'm learning more about it. So, being a scholar elevates our work. It increases its importance. The word scholar takes us out of the realm of function and doing and places us on a plane of being. This means that everything that we do serves to further our understanding of a particular subject. Now follow what I'm saying here. I don't mind telling you that I'm a scholar. My field of inquiry is leadership. What I read is devoted to this topic. I don't read other kinds of books regularly because I am a scholar of leadership. I have lots of books. My father had lots of books, and I have from time to time read some of his books. But I always go back to looking at leadership texts because that is the field of my inquiry. When I do research, when I am curious about something, I spend my time investigating this field so that I might understand it more. Because as a professor of leadership, I'm training a generation of leaders. I can't train them in what I do not know. And I cannot lead them where I'm not willing to go, but I can't tell them about things I haven't learned. And so it's my job then to make sure that I am constantly getting new ideas, new information that I can share with them more. When I write articles for publication, you can be sure that that article is going to address some aspect of leadership. I like to talk about leadership. So when we're conversing, you can be sure that the topic of leadership is going to work its way into our conversation. And yes, I can talk about leadership for hours, just like any other scholar. Does this make me a one-dimensional person? Does it make me somewhat boring? Well, probably not, because it makes me a scholar. I hope that the next time that we meet at a conference in the Philippines, you will introduce yourself as a scholar, because I think that's exactly who we are and how we should. My final wish for this new age of research relates to the relevance of our research. A few months ago, August to be precise, I was invited to serve as a peer reviewer for the Fulbright Scholarship. I was selected to serve on the Educational Leadership Discipline Committee. I was given this honor because I'm a Fulbright alumni. I spent my Fulbright Scholarship there in the Philippines at Tarlac State University. It was an amazing time in my life. I would never trade it. It's one of those professional lifetime achievements that I'm most proud of. And if you look over my shoulder on that shelf, you'll see a certificate that recognizes my time in the Philippines as a Fulbright Scholar. As a peer reviewer, though, our task was to review the project proposals submitted by academics who were seeking a Fulbright Scholarship. There were 13 proposals to read and rate. While I cannot give the specifics about the process or the topics of the research, I can tell you that I was shocked by the quality of the research. Now, these are people who are applying for a very prestigious research and teaching award. Now, the instructions that each of the researchers were provided were very clear about what the candidate was to do, the documents they were to provide, the questions that they were to answer to make sure that they had fully addressed the grant or the scholarship that they were applying for. Here's what shocked me. Half of the applicants did not follow the directions. If it was a teaching scholarship, some of them didn't even address what they were going to teach at the host location. If it was a research and teaching application, there were applicants who did not address fully the research part of the proposal. They focused on what they would be teaching. It shocked me that they just didn't take the time to read the directions and look at what they were being asked to do. Other applications lacked any relevance to the living conditions and the circumstances in the host country. They fully demonstrated that the applicant did not even have a minimal understanding of life in that country to which he or she was seeking a scholarship. My question was, as I read these, how could they conduct a research study in a country for which they had little understanding? Now, before I went to the Philippines and before I applied for a Fulbright scholarship in the Philippines, I had traveled there every year for 5 years. And I spent between 1 and 3 months working with the local K-12 schools and the universities, getting better acquainted with the culture and the people of the Philippines. And of course, I've fallen in love with that culture and the country and the food and the climate, which is very similar to Alabama, where I live now. So that when I wrote my application for the Fulbright scholarship, I could address things that were going on, because at the time I went, the new K-12 initiative was just about to be released in the schools. It had been passed and they were making the implementation of the K-12 initiative. So I addressed that in my proposal, and I think that was the reason mine was selected, because the people who rated it in the Philippines understood that I knew what was going on in the Philippines and that I had realistic expectations for my research. So what happens when people didn't have an understanding of the life in that country? The research that they were proposing really lacked meaning, significance. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't important, and I'm sure that the research was important to the people who wanted to conduct it. But was the research important to the people that would participate in it or who would be impacted by it? So my wish is for you that you would conduct research that needs to be conducted and that it's relevant, that you can justify the research you want to do. Research that solves problems, or research that helps improve the lives of students or other people in the community in which they live is the kind of research I want you to do. I hope that you'll conduct relevant research that expands our knowledge. I cannot tell you what will make your research relevant or important or even meaningful. You will have to decide that for yourself. I just want you to remember those words as you conduct your research and allow them to guide you as you live the life of a scholar. As it is with most topics, there's always more to say than there is time in which to say it, and this brings me to the end of my thoughts on the theme, New Age in Research Dawning in 2018. This is an exciting time of change for those of us who conduct research. There are many more venues where we can present our work. There are many more journals in which we can publish our findings. Lastly, there are now more opportunities to speak in a wider audience by going global. In the past, only those scholars at Ivy League institutions like Harvard and Yale and the Ivy League institutions in other countries had the resources to travel to international conferences and to speak to the world about their research. Today, technology has made it possible for all of us to be on that international stage and share our ideas with a multinational audience. We are just at the dawn of a new day in research. No telling where we will be at the end of this new day in research. For all of the changes that are coming, I also wanted to share the traditions that I hope will remain the same. I hope you will remain passionate about what you're doing. If you cannot find the passion for the topic, then find another topic. Find a topic or a line of research that you can fall in love with and do it. Our careers are too short not to be in love with what we do and excited about telling others about it. Next, I hope that you will rise to the level of a scholar if you're not feeling that you're a scholar now. Our work is not about doing a little empirical study or even a large empirical study, writing up the results and publishing them in a journal. so that we can say, I have 30 publications on my Vita. How many do you have on yours? Our work should be about knowing a topic so intimately, so deeply, that there is not much that we do not already know, but, now here's the difference, listen to me here, but we are still willing to keep looking for something new to learn about that topic. Now, if you pursue that life, you will be the most interesting person in whatever room you walk into. Finally, seek significance in your research. Look for ways to make your work meaningful to your discipline, to your institution, to the communities where you live and work. Don't conduct research for the sake of conducting research or to obtain tenure and even promotion. Those things are important, but relevant research will contribute to the betterment of mankind. And in the final analysis, that's why we do what we do. Should you wish to contact me, you can reach me in care of Troy University at my email address, davisr@troy.edu. Again, that's davisr@troy.edu. In a little more than a month, I'll be joining you there in the Philippines to speak at several conferences. The first of which will be in May at the Crown Legacy Hotel. I believe the date is May 26th, and that will be a conference sponsored by Asian Intellect, the very group that brought you this one. And I'll be addressing a topic dealing with trends and issues in education and in research. I'll also be speaking at a conference in Cebu City, and that'll be in the middle part of June, around the 16th through the 18th. And that topic will also be addressing trends and issues in education and research. So you have two opportunities, and I look forward to seeing you at a conference there in the Philippines, or if you want to contact me, certainly feel free to do so. Enjoyed being with you at this event electronically, and look forward to seeing you at a future conference. Take care now.